I still remember those Sunday dinners like they happened yesterday. The four of us sitting around the old oak table, Mom passing the mashed potatoes, Dad telling the same jokes he had told 100 times before, and all of us laughing anyway. I remember thinking, this is what family means. This is where I belong. This is the one place in the world where I will always be safe, always be wanted. But I was wrong. Everything changed in one single night when my sister Amelia walked through the front door with news that would flip my entire world upside down. I never imagined that my own family would be the ones to push me out into the cold. Before we get into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. And if you have ever felt like an outsider in your own home, stay with me until the end, because this story might just change how you see family loyalty. Let me give you some background about my family so you can understand how we got here. There were four of us living in a two-story house in the suburbs of Columbus, Ohio. My dad, Richard, was 58 years old, a retired engineer who had worked for the same company for over 30 years before deciding to take early retirement. My mom, Patricia, was 55, a homemaker who had dedicated her entire life to raising us and keeping the household running smoothly. Then there was my older sister, Amelia, who was 28 at the time this all happened. And finally, there was me, 25 years old, freshly graduated from college with an accounting degree, working at a small firm downtown, and trying to build a future for myself. That house in Columbus held so many memories. My parents bought it right after they got married, and Amelia and I had grown up running through those hallways, playing in the backyard, carving our heights into the doorframe of the kitchen. It was more than just a building. It was the foundation of everything I knew about family and home. After graduation, I had started saving money to eventually move out on my own. I had dreams of getting my own apartment, maybe even buying a small place someday. But my parents told me there was no rush. They said I should stay home, save my money, take my time building up my finances before making any big moves. It seemed like good advice at the time, so I agreed. But I was not living there for free. Every single month I paid them rent for my room. It was not a huge amount, but it was enough to show that I was contributing, that I was pulling my weight. I also helped out around the house whenever I could. I mowed the lawn, fixed things that broke, took out the trash, shoveled snow in the winter. And I always cooked my own meals, never expecting my mom to feed me like I was still a teenager. I thought I was being a responsible adult. I thought I was doing everything right. Now let me tell you about Amelia and her place in our family dynamic. From the moment she was born, Amelia was the golden child. She was beautiful, outgoing, charming, the kind of person who could walk into any room and immediately become the center of attention. My parents adored her in a way that was almost impossible to compete with. When we were kids, Amelia always got the bigger presents at Christmas. She always got to pick the vacation destinations. She always got the front seat in the car. And when she cried, the whole house stopped until someone made her smile again. Amelia studied communications in college, which seemed fitting for someone who loved to talk and be the center of every conversation. But after graduation, she never really settled into a career. She jumped from job to job, always finding something wrong with each position, always convinced that the next opportunity would be the one that finally fit her perfectly. Meanwhile, she was living in an expensive apartment in downtown Columbus, a place she definitely could not afford on her own. But that was not a problem, because our parents paid her rent every single month without question. Every time Amelia came home to visit, it was like a holiday had arrived. Mom would spend hours in the kitchen, preparing all of Amelia's favorite dishes. Dad would open a bottle of wine and get out the fancy glasses we only used for special occasions. The whole atmosphere of the house would shift, becoming lighter and more festive, all because Amelia had graced us with her presence. I noticed all of this, of course. I noticed how different things were when I walked through the door versus when she did. But I told myself it made sense. Amelia was the older one. She was the daughter. Maybe daughters just naturally got treated differently than sons. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I needed to stop keeping score and just appreciate that I had a family at all. But there were moments that were harder to ignore. When I graduated from college, we celebrated with a small gathering at the house. Mom bought a cake from the grocery store, and we ate it in the kitchen, while Dad flipped through the channels looking for something to watch. It was nice enough, I suppose. But when Amelia graduated 3 years earlier, my parents threw her a party at a fancy restaurant downtown. They invited all of her friends, decorated the private room with balloons and streamers, and gave her a trip to Europe as a graduation gift. A trip to Europe. I got a grocery store cake and a pat on the back. When I needed money to buy a used car so I could get to work, I asked my dad for a small loan. He looked at me seriously and said that a man needs to learn to stand on his own 2 feet. He said I should figure it out myself, that struggling would build character. So I saved for 6 more months, taking the bus in the rain and snow until I could finally afford a beat-up sedan that barely ran. But when Amelia needed money to fix her car, my dad transferred the funds to her account the same day she asked. No lecture about standing on her own feet. No suggestion that she figure it out herself. Just instant help, no questions asked. I swallowed all of this. I told myself that maybe it was different, because Amelia was a girl, because she was the firstborn, because of 1,000 other reasons I invented to make sense of what I was experiencing. Deep down, though, I knew something was not fair. I could feel it in my gut, even when I refused to acknowledge it with my brain. Then came that night in March. I had just gotten home from work, tired from a long day of staring at spreadsheets and double-checking numbers. I was thinking about making some dinner and watching television and going to bed early. Normal stuff, quiet stuff. But when I walked through the front door, I could immediately tell something was wrong. The energy in the house felt different, heavy, somehow charged with something I could not quite identify. And then I saw her. Amelia was sitting in the living room, her face pale and drawn, her eyes red and swollen from crying. My parents sat on either side of her, their hands on her shoulders, their expressions a mixture of concern and something else I could not read. I remember freezing in the doorway, my keys still in my hand, wondering what could possibly have happened to make everyone look so serious. I will never forget that image, the three of them huddled together on the couch, like survivors of some disaster. Because in a way, that was exactly what they were about to become. And that moment marked the last time I truly believed I belonged in that house. My mom looked up when she heard me come in, and something in her eyes made my stomach drop. She waved me over with a tired gesture. "Come sit down," she said. "We have something important to discuss as a family." I set my bag by the door and walked into the living room, taking a seat in the armchair across from the couch. My dad would not meet my eyes. Amelia was still crying, her shoulders shaking with quiet sobs. I had never seen her like this before. Amelia was always the confident one, the one who had everything figured out, the one who breezed through life while the rest of us struggled to keep up. Seeing her so broken felt surreal, like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence, Amelia spoke. Her voice was barely above a whisper, cracked and raw from crying. She said she was pregnant. 3 months along. The father was a guy named Derek, 32 years old, a bartender she had been dating for about 8 months. I had met him once at a family barbecue, a smooth talker with a quick smile and wandering eyes. I remember thinking at the time that he seemed like trouble, but I never said anything because it was not my place. Turns out my instincts were right. According to Amelia, the moment Derek found out about the pregnancy, he vanished. He blocked her number, deleted his social media accounts, and moved out of his apartment without leaving a forwarding address. One day he was there, and the next day he was gone, like he had never existed at all. Amelia was left alone, pregnant, and completely unprepared for what was coming. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that Amelia had no money. Derek had been helping her pay for things, and without his contribution, she could not afford her apartment anymore. She did not have good health insurance. She did not have any savings. She had nothing except for the child growing inside her and the desperate hope that her parents would bail her out like they always had. And of course they did. My mom wrapped her arms around Amelia and stroked her hair, making soothing noises, like Amelia was still a little girl who had scraped her knee on the playground. My dad put his hand on Amelia's shoulder and told her not to worry, that everything would be okay, that she should move back home immediately, and they would take care of everything. I sat there watching this scene unfold, and I will be honest, I felt sympathy for my sister. Getting abandoned like that, pregnant and scared and alone, is a terrible thing to experience. No matter what had happened between us over the years, I did not wish that kind of pain on anyone. So in that moment, I genuinely felt bad for Amelia, and I was glad our parents were there to support her. What I did not realize was that their support for Amelia would come directly at my expense. 2 days later, my dad called me into his home office. This was unusual because my dad rarely wanted to have serious conversations with me. Usually he just grunted directions about yard work or made small talk about sports. But this time, he sat me down across from his desk like I was an employee being called in for a performance review. He cleared his throat and folded his hands on the desk in front of him. "Son," he said, "your sister needs a room. She is pregnant, and she needs a comfortable space to rest and take care of herself. We think it would be best if she moved into your bedroom." I blinked at him, certain I had misheard. My bedroom. The room I had been living in for 25 years. The room I was paying rent for every single month. Where would I sleep? I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. My dad shrugged like this was a minor detail barely worth discussing. "You could sleep in the basement," he said. "We will clear out some of the storage stuff and make room for a bed. It is only temporary until Amelia gets back on her feet." I tried to process what he was telling me. The basement was not a living space. It was a concrete box, underground, cramped and cold, without any windows or natural light. It smelled like dust and mildew. There were spiders down there. We used it to store old furniture, holiday decorations, and my dad's tools. The idea of sleeping down there, of living down there, made my skin crawl. I reminded him that I was paying rent. I told him that I had a right to my room, that I had been a responsible tenant and a contributing member of the household. I was not asking for anything special. I just wanted to keep what I had earned. My dad's expression hardened. He leaned back in his chair and fixed me with a cold stare. "Your sister is in a difficult situation," he said. "She needs support right now. You are a man. You should be able to handle a little discomfort for the sake of your family. I raised you better than this." I tried to argue, but he cut me off. He told me the decision had already been made. Amelia would be moving into my room by the end of the week. I could either accept it gracefully or make things difficult for everyone, but the outcome would be the same either way. I left his office feeling like I had been punched in the stomach. I went to find my mom, hoping she might take my side, but she just shook her head and told me to be understanding. "Your sister needs us right now," she said. "Please try to see things from her perspective. This is hard for her too." Nobody seemed interested in seeing things from my perspective. Nobody seemed to care that I was being pushed out of my own room, my own space, the only corner of the house that had ever felt like it belonged to me. But I did not fight. I never fought. That was not who I was. So I swallowed my pride and my anger and my hurt feelings, and I moved my things down to the basement. I bought an air mattress from a discount store and set it up in the corner, surrounded by cardboard boxes and broken furniture, and the ghosts of family memories nobody wanted anymore. Amelia arrived a few days later with carloads of belongings. She took over my room, completely filling it with her clothes and her decorations and her presents until there was no trace of me left. She also spread into the living room, setting up a little nest on the couch where she would spend most of her days watching television and scrolling through her phone. And then the rules started changing. My mom pulled me aside and explained that Amelia needed peace and quiet to rest properly. The baby was draining her energy, she said, so I would need to be careful about making noise when I came home from work. I should avoid using the kitchen when Amelia was eating because certain smells made her nauseous. I should not watch television after 8 in the evening because the sound disturbed her sleep. I followed the rules. I tiptoed through my own house like a ghost, trying to take up as little space as possible, trying to be invisible. But it was never enough. Amelia started complaining about me constantly. She told my parents that my footsteps were too heavy, that I walked around like an elephant. She said the food I cooked made her sick, even when I was just making a simple sandwich. She complained that I came home too late and woke her up even when I was literally silent. Every day, there was something new, some fresh grievance that proved I was the problem, that I was making her life harder, that I was failing to support her the way a brother should. And every single time, my parents took her side. They never asked me for my version of events. They never considered that maybe, just maybe, Amelia was being unreasonable. They just accepted whatever she said and added new restrictions to my already suffocating existence. I felt like a stranger in the house where I had grown up. Every familiar corner had become foreign territory, claimed by someone else off limits to me. I was paying rent to live in a basement, while my sister lived like a queen upstairs, and somehow, I was still the bad guy. 2 weeks into this nightmare, I came home late after working overtime at the office. I opened the front door as quietly as humanly possible. I slipped off my shoes in the entryway. I crept toward the basement stairs with the stealth of a trained spy. I was doing everything right. I was being so careful. It did not matter. Amelia was waiting for me at the bottom of the stairs, her arms crossed over her swollen belly, her face twisted with anger. "You woke me up," she hissed. "I have told you so many times to be quiet. Do you not care about me at all? Do you not care about your future niece or nephew?" I opened my mouth to defend myself, to explain that I had been silent, that she could not possibly have heard me. But before I could get a word out, my parents came rushing down from their bedroom. My mom looked at me with disappointment written all over her face. "Why can you not be more careful?" she demanded. "Your sister is pregnant. Is that really so hard for you to understand?" I tried to explain what happened. I tried to tell them that I had been quiet, that Amelia was exaggerating, that this whole situation was completely unfair. But my dad just shook his head and said, "If you cannot respect your sister and this family, maybe you should find somewhere else to live." I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I stared at my father, the man who had taught me to ride a bike, the man who had coached my little league team, the man whose approval I had been chasing my entire life. And I saw a stranger looking back at me. "Are you kicking me out?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He did not answer right away. The silence stretched between us like a chasm, wide and deep and impossible to cross. Finally, he spoke. "I am saying you should think about your attitude and what kind of person you want to be." Amelia stood behind my parents, a smug little smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "He has always been selfish," she said. "He has never cared about anyone but himself. I am carrying a child, and he cannot even make a small sacrifice for me." I looked at my mother, hoping for some sign of support, some flicker of recognition that this was wrong. But she just looked away, unwilling to meet my eyes. And in that moment, I finally understood something that had been true my entire life, but that I had always refused to see. It did not matter what I did. It did not matter how hard I tried or how much I sacrificed. In this family, I would always be second. I would always be wrong. I would always be less than. That night, I lay on my air mattress in the cold basement staring at the concrete ceiling, and I made a decision. I was done. I was done trying to earn love that would never be freely given. I was done shrinking myself to make room for someone else. I was done being the invisible one, the expendable one, the one who did not matter. The next morning, I called my friend Marcus from college. We had been close for years, roommates during our sophomore year, and he had always been the kind of friend who showed up when it counted. I told him what was happening, gave him the short version of the nightmare I was living. He did not hesitate for even a second. "Pack your stuff," he said. "My living room has a pull-out couch. You can stay as long as you need." I spent the rest of that day gathering my belongings. It did not take long because I did not have much. My whole life fit into 2 suitcases and a backpack. 25 years of existence reduced to what I could carry out the door with my own 2 hands. When I was ready, I walked upstairs one final time. My parents and Amelia were sitting at the kitchen table having breakfast, like it was just another ordinary morning. They looked up when I entered, their expressions shifting from surprise to confusion as they took in my luggage. I set my key on the counter. "I am leaving," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I am moving out today. I do not want to cause any more problems for the family. My mom stood up, her face suddenly worried. Where will you go? Do you have somewhere to stay? I will figure it out, I said. I always do. My dad said nothing. He just sat there with his coffee staring at a spot on the wall like this whole scene was too boring to hold his attention. Amelia crossed her arms and rolled her eyes. Do not act like a victim, she said. Nobody is forcing you out. You are choosing to leave. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I felt something shift inside me. A door closing, a weight lifting. I nodded slowly. You are right, I said. I am choosing to leave, because nobody here wants me to stay. And I finally realized there is a difference, but it does not change anything in the end. I picked up my bags and walked to the front door. Behind me, I heard my mom call my name, her voice cracking with something that might have been regret. But I did not turn around. I could not. If I looked back, I might lose the courage I had finally found. So I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and started walking toward my car. The spring air was cool against my face, and somewhere in the distance I could hear birds singing. It felt like the first day of a new life, which in a way it was. The next few months were hard. Marcus was true to his word and let me crash on his pull-out couch rent-free until I could get back on my feet. I worked overtime whenever I could, saving every extra dollar, rebuilding my life one paycheck at a time. By the fourth month, I had saved enough to rent a small studio apartment. It was nothing fancy, just a single room with a tiny kitchen and a bathroom the size of a closet. But it was mine. I bought secondhand furniture from thrift stores. I painted the walls myself on a weekend when I had nothing else to do. I hung pictures and put up shelves and turned that tiny space into something that felt like home. Work was going well too. My dedication and extra hours had not gone unnoticed. 6 months after I moved out, my boss called me into his office and told me I was being promoted to senior accountant. It came with a significant raise and more responsibility, and I accepted it without hesitation. Around the 8th month mark, I met Sophia. She was a friend, someone I got introduced to at a birthday party Marcus dragged me to. She had dark curly hair, a laugh that could fill up any room, and a way of seeing right through all my defenses. We started dating, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it felt like to be with someone who actually wanted to know me, the real me, not just the version of me that was convenient for them. By the 10th month, I had moved into a bigger apartment, a one-bedroom with actual closet space, and a balcony that overlooked a little park. Sophia practically lived there by that point, her toothbrush in my bathroom, her clothes in my closet, her presence woven into every corner of my new life. 1 year after I walked out of my parents' house with everything I owned in 2 suitcases, I was a completely different person. I had a career I was proud of. I had a relationship that filled me with joy instead of anxiety. I had friends who chose me, who wanted me around, who made me feel like I mattered. I had built something real and good, and mine all by myself. And then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, my phone rang. I did not recognize the number, but the area code was familiar. It was from Columbus, from the neighborhood where I had grown up. Something in my gut told me who it was before I even answered, but I picked up anyway. The voice on the other end was thin and shaky, older than I remembered. It was my mother. "Son," she said, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "It is Mom. I know I have no right to call after everything that happened, but I need to talk to you. Your father and I, we have been doing a lot of thinking. We made mistakes. We know that now. We are so sorry. We want to see you. We want to make things right. Amelia wants to apologize too. Can we please just talk? Can we try to be a family again?" I did not say anything for a long moment. A year of silence, and now this. A year of building a life without them, of learning to be whole on my own, of discovering that I did not need their approval to be worthy of love. And now, out of nowhere, this phone call asking me to come back. "Why now?" I finally asked. "Why are you calling me after all this time?" My mother took a shaky breath and started to explain. Amelia had given birth 4 months ago, a healthy baby girl. The delivery went smoothly, and for a while everything seemed fine. But then things started to change. Amelia had always been demanding, but motherhood amplified it to a whole new level. She expected my parents to help with the baby constantly, to wake up for nighttime feedings, to babysit whenever she wanted a break, to pay for diapers and formula, and all the endless expenses that come with a newborn. She wanted to go back to work, but insisted my parents provide full-time childcare without any compensation or even gratitude. When they pushed back, when they suggested that maybe she should contribute more or make other arrangements, Amelia exploded. She accused them of not supporting her, of never caring about her, of being terrible parents. The same tactics she had always used, the tears and the accusations and the emotional manipulation. But now they were directed at them instead of at me. And finally, after all these years, my parents began to see what I had always seen. They began to understand what it felt like to give and give and give while someone took and took and took and never said thank you. "We miss you," my mother said, her voice breaking. "We were so wrong about how we treated you. We see that now. Please let us make it right." I listened to everything she said without interrupting. When she finished, I told her I would think about it and call her back. Then I hung up and sat in silence for a long time, trying to process what I was feeling. Sophia found me on the balcony an hour later, staring at the sunset. She did not ask what was wrong. She just sat down next to me and waited until I was ready to talk. I told her about the phone call, about my mother's tears and apologies, about the invitation to reconcile. I told her I did not know what to do, that part of me wanted to run back and reclaim the family I had lost, but another part of me was terrified of getting hurt again. Sophia listened to everything, then took my hand in hers. "Whatever you decide," she said, "I will support you. But remember, you do not owe them anything. You can forgive someone and still choose to keep them at a distance. Forgiveness and trust are not the same thing." A week later, I agreed to meet my parents, but I set the terms. We would meet at a coffee shop, neutral territory, not at the house where I had felt so small for so many years. And I would come alone. This was something I needed to face by myself. They were already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking older and smaller than I remembered. My father's hair had gone almost completely gray. My mother had new lines around her eyes, and she looked tired in a way that went deeper than just lack of sleep. Seeing them like that, so diminished from the powerful figures of my childhood, stirred something complicated in my chest. My mother started crying the moment I sat down. She reached across the table like she wanted to touch me, but then pulled her hand back, uncertain of whether she had the right. She told me again how sorry she was, how wrong they had been, how they had failed me as parents. My father was quieter, but he spoke too. He admitted that he had been too hard on me, that he had held me to standards he never applied to Amelia, that he had let his favoritism blind him to the damage he was causing. "I never meant to make you feel like you did not matter," he said. "You are my son. You have always mattered. They wanted me to come back. They wanted family dinners again, holiday gatherings, a chance to know the man I had become. They wanted to introduce me to my niece Amelia's daughter, their granddaughter, my flesh and blood." I let them finish, let them say everything they needed to say, and then I took a deep breath and told them my truth. "I do not hate you," I said. "I want you to know that. I have spent a lot of time this past year working through my feelings, and I have let go of the anger. Holding on to it was only hurting me, and I refused to let bitterness define my life." But I continued. "I cannot just pretend nothing happened. I cannot walk back into that house and pick up where we left off like the last year was just a bad dream. I have built a new life for myself. I have found people who love me without conditions, who support me without asking me to shrink myself first. I need to protect what I have built." I told them I was willing to stay in contact. I would call occasionally. I would meet up for coffee now and then. Maybe eventually I would come to family events again. But it would be on my terms, at my pace, with boundaries that I would enforce. My mother nodded through her tears. She said she understood. She said she would take whatever I was willing to give. My father looked like he wanted to argue, like part of him still thought he could talk me into doing things his way. But then something in his face shifted, and he just nodded too. "That is fair," he said quietly. "We will respect your boundaries." Before I left, my mother asked if I would like to meet the baby sometime. Your niece, she said. Her name is Charlotte. She has your grandmother's eyes. I thought about it for a moment, then nodded. Someday, I said. When I am ready. I met Charlotte a few weeks later. Amelia was there too, hovering in the background like she did not know how to act around me anymore. She mumbled an apology that sounded rehearsed and insincere, but I accepted it anyway, because holding grudges takes too much energy. When I held Charlotte for the first time, this tiny human with curious eyes and a grip like a vice, I felt something I did not expect. A connection real and undeniable, the bond of shared blood. But along with that connection came a clear understanding. I could love this child without owing anything to the adults who had hurt me. I could be part of her life without sacrificing my peace. That is what I have learned this past year. Family is important, but not at any price. Some prices are too high. Some sacrifices leave you with nothing left to give. I have learned that walking away is not the same as giving up. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes it is the only way to find yourself again. I have learned that forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. It does not mean forgetting. It does not mean excusing. It just means refusing to carry the weight of someone else's mistakes for the rest of your life. And I have learned that the people who are supposed to love you the most are sometimes the ones who hurt you the deepest. But that does not mean love does not exist. It just means you have to look for it in different places, build it with different people, create your own definition of family that actually feels like home. These days, my relationship with my parents is polite but distant. We talk on the phone maybe once every couple of weeks. I visited the house for the first time last month just for an hour, just to prove to myself that I could. It felt strange to walk through those rooms again, to see my old bedroom turned into a nursery, to realize that life had continued there without me. Amelia and I are cordial, but not close. We will probably never be close. She is still the same person she always was, still demanding, still convinced the world owes her something. But she is also a mother now, and maybe someday that will change her. Maybe it will not. Either way, it is not my problem to solve. Sophia and I are talking about moving in together officially. She says she wants to adopt a dog, and I am pretending to resist, even though we both know I will say yes eventually. My life is full in ways I never imagined when I was sleeping on that air mattress in the basement, wondering if I would ever feel like I belonged anywhere. So if you are out there right now, feeling invisible in your own family, wondering if you matter, please hear me when I say this. You do matter. Your feelings are valid. Your pain is real. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who should have loved you the most and find the people who actually will. I want to thank you all for watching this video until the end. If this story resonated with you, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Have you ever had to set boundaries with your own family? Have you ever walked away from a toxic situation and found something better on the other side? Let me know your thoughts below. And if you found value in this story, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Do not forget to subscribe so you do not miss any future stories. I wish you all the strength to build the life you deserve and the peace that comes from knowing your own worth. Take care of yourselves.